Professor E. Michael Jones is rendering a great service to humanity by reviving interest in a concept that has been discussed very little in recent times, that of logos. Professor Jones defines logos as the order of the universe. The order of the universe implies that there is a right way of doing things, that the relationships of things can be proper, otherwise describable as successful, or against the natural order, and therefore doomed to result in negative consequences. The Christian derives his familiarity with the term logos from the Gospel of St. John, in which the first verses assert, "In the beginning was the Word," and the word in the Greek for word is logos, "and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." He goes on to assert that everything that has been made was made through the Logos. And Christians identify the Logos with the incarnation of God in the form of Jesus. So the Christians affirm that Jesus, who is the second person in the divine Trinity, was the creator of all things in the universe, and that because mankind had lost its way, he was born to a human woman for the purpose of coming to restore what was lost. That is, to allow humanity to understand its true nature and purpose. So being the creator of all things, Jesus understood how they related to each other and was the perfect teacher of this to the society he visited, from which it has spread throughout the world. So this concept of logos was neglected. It was something that was a prominent feature of Christianity in early days, but our modern wishy-washy churches, who seem only to be concerned to be politically correct and accommodating, rather than to see their function as spreading truth, have basically forgotten. Now, Jones is spreading this concept widely throughout the world with astonishing success, but he's not the only one in fairly recent times to have stressed this. For example, the Scottish engineer Clifford Hugh Douglas, the founder of the social credit movement, which has been deliberately maligned and misrepresented now for nearly a century, spoke as an engineer of what he regarded as a canon. He said the canon is the rightness in the doing of things. And he said the engineer who gets a right solution to a problem will recognize the canon. And it is the source of a feeling of being in harmony with the universe to make such a discovery. Now, Dr. Jones is not an engineer, but he is a musician. And I'm sure that as a musician, discovering just what sounds right in musical composition and performance, he experiences a direct feeling of the Logos in his life. Obviously, this concept of there being an order in the universe to which people must conform in order to enjoy the benefits of life is in direct conflict with the modern concept that one should do whatever he is emotionally inspired to do. The Logos, except to the extent that it has been revealed in the words and example of Jesus, is something that mankind must discover and conform to. Well, if you think that the rule of life is, as Aleister Crowley said, do what thou wilt, then inevitably you will be in conflict with the order of the universe, about which you can do nothing, that you cannot change in significant ways through your life. And if the order is the way things are made to operate, then if you are in conflict with the way things operate, eventually you will experience drastic failure. The concept of the Logos is infinitely intriguing because it implies that life is basically an adventure of discovering the nature and functioning of reality in all spheres, spiritual and material, or whatever other sphere happens to exist. It is enough of a challenge for anyone, and certainly promises more successful results than the misguided notion that every individual should spend his life doing as he or she wilt. What Jones is telling us is that in all things, in all areas, in all observable phenomena and invisible phenomena, there is a right way of doing things. And if I have any quarrel with him, I think it would be in his failure to draw attention to how this applies to human institutions. Because there is a law for the successful form human relations take at the personal and the social level. And it is of primordial importance that we should discover these laws, because there is a determined effort coming from all directions in society at present to sow confusion about right relationships. Our guidance about the form these relationships should take comes from the example of the life Jesus showed us and the words he spoke to us as teaching. It is remarkable that Jesus never advocated applying coercion to anyone. In his communications with others, he always insisted upon their right to choose what their course in life should be. He never advocated the establishment of an organization that would have a right to apply pressure to anyone. He always acted in such a way as to further people's well-being at a personal level, healing them, providing them with nourishment without preconditions if they were hungry. The only instance in which he resorted to intimidation was when he drove the money changers from the temple. And anyone who has studied and understood the current monetary system certainly would not find fault with his actions on that occasion. Indeed, we would do well to emulate him and drive the money power out of its throne of dominance over all humanity and spread its potential benefits to all mankind. So there is a right relationship of individuals to each other and a right relationship of individuals to the institutions that bring them into association with each other. And if we regard the relationship of the latter through the lens of freedom of choice that Jesus provided, we should see that an essential component of human relations is that the individual should have an option to contract out of projects that are irreconcilable with his conscience or in which, for other reasons, he does not want to participate. This applies to any association in which he is involved, from a badminton club to a nation. If people lose confidence in the fact that they are drawing benefits from any association, then they should have the power to shut that association down by opting out of it. Only in this way can organizations be kept on track to pursue their proper purposes and to meet the needs of people who have associated with them. It's a very different way of thinking from the one that has been inculcated in us through our entertainment and educational systems, which endeavor to make us blind followers of so-called leaders who are imposed upon us by a system of selection that is quite outside the realm of choice of the population. So what are the criteria by which we can judge the rightness, that is the conformity with the Logos, of any human action? Well, Jesus gave us a number. In the first place, he said, in any situation involving life or death, one should choose life. One should celebrate life. And the celebration of life involves necessarily the expansion of love among all people. He taught us that God, his Father, is love, that we are made in God's image, and that therefore we are made to experience love. And we should experience this love in all aspects of our lives, including our relationships to governmental institutions. So if impositions and attacks on our freedom are emanating from government, this is a sure sign that they are in violation of the Logos. Another criterion Jesus stressed was that of abundance. He said, I came that you should have life and have it abundantly. And he gave demonstrations of how we should have abundance by turning water into wine and by multiplying a few loaves of bread and fishes so that thousands of people who had come to hear him were able to eat of these, and the food remaining at the end of this procedure vastly exceeded that with which the distribution of food began. This was an illustration of the abundance of which the earth, one of God's creations, is capable. Another aspect of Jesus' teachings was that we should not judge each other. And indeed, this is just to guarantee the release of abundance, because when people start judging each other, it is with the notion that the other person should be constrained or limited in some way. And this is a way of thwarting the release of abundance that would follow the universalization of loving relationships. A further aspect of the right order is to protect children. Jesus stressed this when he said, anyone who harmed a hair on the head of one of these, my little ones, would be better off if they had a millstone hung around their neck and they were cast into the sea. Well, this implies that there is something precious in childhood, and therefore that children should be allowed to be children without interference in their development. Jesus taught us this, and if we ignore his message, we do so greatly at our peril. So these are examples of right relationships among people, examples of how we are made and how we should conform to the Logos, or the canon, the order of the universe, the proper way of doing things, the way of bringing things into combination that will lead to abundant life. Finally, I should add that the most pernicious violation of the Logos is undoubtedly to be found in our financial system and modern concepts of economics. What is economics? Economics is merely the conversion of material resources to achieve the end of satisfying human wants. There are two sides. There is a side of production, and there is a side of consumption. And it is only logical that there is no point in producing anything unless there is a consumer demand for it. But there is no university course that will stress the need to keep productive capacity and consuming capacity in balance. In other words, the need always to provide the means to get production into the hands of society. This explains the ongoing phenomenon of poverty in the midst of plenty. No matter what astonishing achievements are made in the way of enhancing mankind's productive capacity, for the vast majority of humanity, their economic position remains the same. Indeed, in the face of this productive proliferation, often people's economic position actually deteriorates. So it is a part of the Logos that consuming capacity should be synchronized with producing capacity. Our financial system interferes with this connection, and it does so to protect the privileged status of a small element of society. They violate Logos out of hatred for their fellow man. A financial system that was in tune with the love that is the heart of creation would not be stopping up abundance, so it does not reach God's children. So while Dr. E. Michael Jones is drawing attention to the Logos, I wish he would simultaneously point out what a fundamental and indeed diabolical violation of the Logos is incarnated in our present monetary and financial system. This system is the key to the release of human initiative and to loving relationships among all people. Shortages and austerity are artificial phenomena. The earth, assisted by the creative genius of mankind, is striving always to deliver abundance to its inhabitants. And the rectification of our financial system would be an elementary problem. It is all related to providing adequate buying power to the citizenry to allow them, without precondition, to draw on the productive capacity of our economy. This could be done in either of two well-known ways. One would be to reduce prices to bring existing consumer power up to the level that it is required to buy what is being produced. And another would be to distribute what could be regarded as financial dividends as supplementary income to make sure that the production that is sitting in storage containers and on lots and unsold on shelves can be bought by people who could make use of it. Now there is a half-successful means of getting this production over to people, but it involves enslaving them in a system of employment that is arbitrary and artificial, and has very little to do with economic wealth. Indeed, the employment system is a system of controlling people that in many respects generates more insecurity than systems of slavery that have been known in the past. Anyone can at any time lose his job and his source of income. How can we allow such a system to persist in the face of this ocean of wealth, mountains of foodstuffs that are pouring forth in such abundance that their producers hardly know where to go to dispose of them, to distribute them, to sell them? So let us discover the Logos in all things, and let us set as a priority the pursuit of Logos in this monstrous, distorted distribution system with which the financial system has burdened us.